What's up everybody, this is Master Eon Gamer. The first Overwatch 2 beta has sadly come to a close, but that just means we can start getting excited and looking forward to the second Overwatch 2 beta, which is sure to include a ton of brand new content to get people even more excited for the eventual release of Overwatch 2. However, what can we actually expect leading up to that second beta? When will we get new information? And what sort of new content exactly can we expect it to include? Well, in today's video, I'm going to talk about exactly that, ranging from what sort of new heroes, maps, and other exciting content it may feature, and how it can improve on what we've already seen added in the first Overwatch 2 beta. So without further ado, let's jump on in and start off with the official information we have thus far, which is that there will be a major Overwatch 2 event on June 16th. Now, this information was released by Blizzard at the same time the first Overwatch 2 beta came to a close on May 17th, and according to the article put out by Blizzard regarding this upcoming date, this is the date to look forward to for more information regarding the Overwatch 2 beta and other content pertaining to the sequel. Now, right off the bat, I've seen a number of people think that this means the Overwatch 2 second beta will be starting on June 16th, and while that is possible, and I'll talk a bit more about that in just a second, it isn't guaranteed. So right off the bat, I wouldn't suggest getting your hopes up for June 16th being the start date of the next beta, but at the very least, we're going to be getting more information about the Overwatch 2 beta. And unfortunately, it kind of sounds like we might not really hear anything, or at least nothing substantial, leading up until then. Based on the wording used in the article talking about this June 16th date, as well as the corresponding social media posts about it, it seems like Blizzard's going to take a bit of downtime. Well, maybe downtime isn't quite the right word, but basically the next month leading up to mid-June, it seems like is going to be a sort of quiet period. That doesn't mean we aren't going to hear anything about Overwatch 2 during this period, and certainly it doesn't mean that Blizzard themselves won't be working on it quietly behind the scenes, but certainly no major news or announcements are going to end up happening during this time. So, with all that being said, what can we actually expect to happen on June 16th? Well, let's start off by discussing the most optimistic outcome, which is that June 16th is in fact the date the second beta starts. As I mentioned, this hasn't been spelled out by Blizzard and thus isn't guaranteed, but I wouldn't put it past Blizzard to sort of surprise us and catch us off guard by announcing what sounds like it may only be some sort of developer update video or maybe like a dev Q&A live stream sort of thing, and then once the community has that sort of thing as their expectation, Blizzard then blindsides us by straight up releasing the Overwatch 2 beta again on that very day. Now, admittedly, I don't think this is particularly likely. I think that's a little too optimistic when talking about Blizzard and just given the time frame it typically takes them to work on these sort of things. I imagine Blizzard's probably going to need more time to work on adding in the new features of the second beta, getting it all running smoothly. So if we're super lucky, June 16th might be the date we end up getting to jump back into Overwatch 2, but more than likely this date is just going to end up being an announcement of the content we'll be getting in the second beta. For comparison, think of the first announcement we got for the first Overwatch 2 beta, which basically outlined all the new content we'd be getting, from the new hero Sojourn to the 4 new maps, the hero reworks, as well as the ping system, were all originally announced in that first teaser, which was posted a month and a half before the beta actually started. So I could see June 16th end up being a similar sort of event to the first announcement of the Overwatch 2 beta, where maybe Blizzard will say, hey, 2 new heroes coming, 4 or 5 new maps on top of the other ones we saw in the previous beta, and who knows, maybe a clan system or a proper competitive mode or something like that. Then, depending on how far off after June 16th the second beta actually ends up starting, we might also get an official start date for the second beta on that same day, or maybe it'll be something they'll announce later down the line, kind of like what they did with the first beta. But either way, June 16th is definitely going to have a ton of information. There might be some things mentioned before this date, but June 16th specifically is the day we want to look forward to, and I imagine is going to end up having some sort of developer update or Overwatch dev livestream, something substantial of that sort to inform players about what we can expect with the second beta. And speaking of which, what can we expect with the second beta? Well, for starters, I think the most obvious new things we can see in it are major content additions, particularly being new maps and new heroes. Now, one of the big concerns I've seen floating around about the first Overwatch 2 beta is that it only introduced 1 new hero and 4 new maps. And while that is understandably a fairly minuscule amount of content compared to what we were all expecting with Overwatch 2, it's important to keep in mind that the first Overwatch 2 beta was more than anything a tech beta. Specifically, Blizzard wanted to use this first beta to test out the core systems of Overwatch 2, such as the new engine, the new 5v5 format, as well as the new push game mode, and other little back-end changes. Therefore, they intentionally didn't add a ton of new content to this first beta. The new hero Sojourn and the 4 new maps were more than anything probably just there to help give more flavor to the beta and help get people excited, while still making that beta's primary goal to test the more core back-end aspects of the game. However, now that we've gotten that first tech beta out of the way, the second Overwatch 2 beta is almost certainly going to see a significant increase in the amount of new content added. And what that'll most likely end up meaning is that we'll be seeing multiple new heroes added in this next beta, along with many, many more new maps. But let's go a bit deeper than that. Which new heroes specifically might we end up seeing? Well, honestly, there's no way to know for sure which heroes are going to be added in this next beta just yet. There, of course, are a number of different heroes which we either effectively have confirmed becoming an Overwatch 2, or just we strongly suspect they're going to be a new hero, such as the Junker Queen, the Kanazaka Fox Girl, and characters like Malga. But I think the more important aspect to focus on, rather than a specific character, is the role of the heroes that are going to be added. The first new hero we've gotten for Overwatch 2, being Sojourn, was a damage hero, and while that's all well and good, and I think she's a great hero in that aspect, overall, players are really itching to get new tanks, and especially new supports. Especially when you consider how one of the weakest aspects of the first Overwatch 2 beta was the support category, and how that role overall just felt underwhelming and uninteresting compared to all the exciting changes and new heroes in the tank and damage categories. I think Blizzard is going to try to really make up for that aspect in the second Overwatch 2 beta, and one of the best ways of them doing that will be to add at least one new support hero. Now, depending on how many heroes total get added in the second beta, I could even potentially see there being 2 support heroes added. Of course, that's all going to depend on how many new heroes total they have planned for Overwatch 2, and which heroes are at what points in development. But if there's one thing that I think is incredibly safe to say about the Overwatch 2 second beta, it's that we'll be getting at least one new support hero. Hopefully, they'll end up being more than that. I personally would love if we got 2 or 3 new heroes added with the second beta, and honestly I think that's a fairly realistic number considering just the scale of Overwatch 2 and what we can expect with it. And while I wouldn't expect all of them to be support heroes, even though we desperately need more support heroes in the game, certainly at least one of them will be. If we get 2 heroes, it's probably going to be a support and a tank, just since, you know, we've already had the damage hero with Sojourn. And if it's 3 heroes, then tank, support, and who knows who the third one will be. Maybe another support, maybe another tank, maybe another damage. Honestly, it could go anyway at that point, but the important thing to focus on here is that it does seem very likely that we'll be getting multiple new heroes added in this next beta, as not only are new heroes by far the most exciting type of new content we can end up getting, but also one of the most important in terms of making the game more substantial in terms of the actual gameplay of it. Again, referencing the support category in particular, which was by far the most underwhelming in the first Overwatch 2 beta, adding a new support hero is a great way to make that role overall feel more fleshed out and interesting. And they could easily have a new support hero added on top of a number of support category changes in general. Maybe we'll get further balance changes to the support role, making them feel more interesting and engaging to play, or maybe we'll even end up getting a significant rework for one or more support heroes. Honestly, I think Brigitte at this point could really stand to get a proper rework, but we'll have to wait and see on that front, as it seems like Blizzard maybe is done reworking Overwatch 1 heroes. It's kind of hard to say. I feel like their intent was to try to get all the Overwatch 1 reworks done in this first beta, but who knows? For all we know, there could end up being more reworks later down the line that they just haven't talked about yet. Regardless though, even outside of just the new hero aspect, I do think the support role overall is likely to get a bit more attention in this second beta, just because it was such a controversial and underwhelming aspect of the original beta, and certainly Blizzard is going to want to try to make up for that as time goes on. But moving on from heroes, next up let's talk about new maps. Now, the first Overwatch 2 beta introduced 4 brand new maps, 2 of which were for already existing game modes, and 2 of which were for the brand new push game mode. However, beyond these 4 maps we got to playtest in the first beta, there's actually 3 other maps we know are in the works for Overwatch 2, but we haven't actually gotten to play for ourselves yet. And these are Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Gothenburg, Sweden, and an unspecified map located somewhere in India. Now, of these 3 maps, Rio is the only one where we've actually seen proper gameplay footage of it, as was shown in the Overwatch 2021 anniversary livestream, and we saw that that map was in fact a hybrid map. So right off the bat, I think Rio is by far the most likely map for us to end up seeing in the second Overwatch 2 beta, but the other 2 maps, being Gothenburg and India, are a bit more mysterious. Gothenburg, from what we can tell, was originally intended to be a 2CP or assault map, but given that that entire game mode ended up getting scrapped in Overwatch 2, it's apparently been reworked to a new, undisclosed game mode, which we have yet to see or hear anything specific about. Curiously, based on a comment from Overwatch game director Aaron Keller, India may also end up being this other undisclosed game mode as well, so depending on when this new mystery game mode ends up being released, we may or may not end up seeing India or Gothenburg in the second beta. However, if I had to make a prediction on this one, I'd say we're most likely going to have this new game mode revealed for the second beta, because, well, game modes are a pretty core and pretty fundamental aspect of Overwatch overall. So much so that I think Blizzard would want as much time to playtest a specific game mode as possible prior to having the game actually launch, which means the earlier they get these game modes into the hands of us in the beta, the better. So much like with my expectation of Rio being pretty much guaranteed to be in this next upcoming beta, I think it's extremely likely that we end up getting a proper reveal of this new game mode sometime leading up to the second beta. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this new game mode ends up being something we see talked about during the June 16th event. They'll probably explain the mechanics of this game mode, go more in depth with how it actually works, and then show off gameplay of Gothenburg and India, and maybe even another brand new map that's also for this mode. And to the same extent, I think it's very likely that we're going to end up seeing other previously unannounced new maps either during the June 16th event or at some point in time leading up to the second beta, since the fact that the first beta had 4 new maps added and we know this following beta is going to be more content heavy than the original means there's probably going to be more than just 3 new maps added in the second beta. So that's definitely another exciting thing for us to look forward to. Beyond these bigger forms of content though, being the heroes and maps, I'm sure there's a number of other little more social or feature-esque things that are going to be added in the second beta as well, such as potentially the new clan system. This is something which has been sort of teased, hinted at, and leaked various times over the years. Blizzard hasn't really said anything official regarding whether or not there's going to be a clan system in Overwatch 2, but at this point it does seem very likely just based on a lot of the other details we have. And while a clan system certainly isn't as core to the Overwatch 2 experience as, say, a core game mode, map, or hero, it is definitely something that Blizzard would probably want to test out a little bit in one of the upcoming betas, so it's at the very least possible that we see something like this get implemented in the second beta. Another thing we could end up seeing in the second beta is an official competitive mode. Aside from the support heroes being underwhelming, one of the most critiqued aspects of the first Overwatch 2 beta was the absence of competitive. While it's certainly understandable why Blizzard didn't have competitive in the first beta, as that would have just made the matchmaking a lot clunkier and increased queue times, as time goes on and more people get involved in the Overwatch 2 betas, it certainly makes sense for Blizzard to implement a proper competitive mode. And given how much demand there is already for this to be added, I think there's a pretty good chance we'll end up seeing it in the second beta. In fact, Blizzard has even commented that they have some ideas for how to change up the competitive system in Overwatch 2, and while they haven't given any actual details yet as for what that means, it's definitely exciting to think that we could see some of these changes being implemented in the next test of Overwatch 2. Beyond this though, there's a number of other little things I could see end up getting implemented into this next Overwatch 2 beta. Things like more of the original maps from Overwatch 1, as well as more variant times of day for the maps we have, and we could also end up finally seeing the hero redesigns for every hero being usable in the beta itself. I think honestly one of the big misses of the first Overwatch 2 beta was the fact that all those cool redesigns which we saw in all the promotional material and teasers weren't actually available for us to use when playing in the beta ourselves. While technically these Overwatch 2 redesigns are essentially just a new skin for every hero, I think they play a really important role in helping to sell the idea of Overwatch 2 being a distinct new game. Even if ultimately it's just an expansion of the PvP, having those new designs for all the original heroes really I think would have helped to make people feel like the first Overwatch 2 beta was more distinct from just normally playing Overwatch 1. That's not to say having had all these redesigns would have negated all the criticism in that regard that people were giving the first beta, but I feel like Blizzard really missed out on having something that could have certainly helped with the image of Overwatch 2. So regardless of whether it was originally in their plan or not, I could see them putting in the extra effort to make sure all those redesigns are finished by the time of the second beta, so that they don't quite run into that same problem again. So having covered much of the new content we can expect to see in the second Overwatch 2 beta, do we really just have to wait until June 16th before anything will happen? Sadly, yeah, probably, more than likely that's going to be the case, but I'm sure Blizzard will be giving us some sneak peeks along the way. Maybe not until June 16th, but certainly once we hit that point and we at least get, some sort of roadmap for the next few months or some sort of outline of the sort of content we can actually expect in the second beta, I'm sure Blizzard is really going to once again start to ramp up all the excitement and social media discussions regarding Overwatch 2 and all the new content in it. Again, comparing it to how they handled the first Overwatch 2 beta, we saw new content reveals and more information on the stuff they originally announced every week leading up to the beta actually starting. So if this ends up being the case, then perhaps we'll end up seeing them handle the June 16th event in a way where they sort of tell us what we're going to end up getting, but only subtly. Specifically, I'm thinking of the new heroes aspect. Like, maybe that first announcement won't actually tell us which new heroes we're going to end up getting. Maybe it'll just say like one new tank hero, one new support, and then over the following weeks leading up to the actual beta starting, we'll get more little teasers sort of hinting at who those heroes are actually going to end up being, with some sort of official reveal and showcase of their abilities sometime shortly before that beta starts. I think this would be a much more exciting way to handle it as opposed to just having a giant showcase on June 16th where they're like Junker Queen, Kamazaka Fox Girl, Rio, Gothenburg, and just like say all the content. That would be a ton of stuff to showcase on a single day, which I don't know, maybe I guess some people would like that, but typically it's more in Blizzard's style to sort of pace things out. They'll probably want to sort of build intrigue for each hero individually so they don't just all overlap with each other, which means we'll probably see them teased separately. Maybe we'll get an origin story for the Junker Queen and some of her abilities one week, then the next week it'll be, an origin story for Malga and some abilities for him. But the important thing to take note of is that even with June 16th clearly being a big upcoming event that's going to give us a bunch of information about what to expect over the months ahead, much of the information when it comes to major content like the new maps and heroes is probably going to end up getting revealed more gradually. And considering how Blizzard often very much likes to tease things way ahead of time to get intrigue going, I wouldn't be surprised if in one way or another we start to get little hints and teasers pointing towards maybe some of these new maps or heroes even before the June 16th event. Whether this will be an update to an existing map in Overwatch 1, or maybe just a random nonchalant little teaser on their social media accounts, I think there's a decent chance we could start to see some little stirrings when it comes to the new content even before that mid-June event. Ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see on that front. I, for one, will be keeping a close eye on Overwatch 1 as well as Blizzard's social media accounts to see if anything ends up going down, and of course, I'll be keeping you all up to date with any new interesting things that end up happening right here on my channel, so be sure to stay tuned. And with that, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the upcoming June 16th Overwatch 2 event, as well as what sort of content you're expecting to see in the second Overwatch 2 beta by dropping a comment down below. Are you hoping we see multiple new heroes added in this next upcoming beta? Or maybe you're curious to see what sort of new maps and game modes might get introduced as well. Either way, I'd love to hear from you, and as always, be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch content, and special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible. If you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. And otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.